Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the executive. Just to remind everyone that this meeting is being held under the government regulations to allow us to hold remote meetings and to allow decisions to be taken. Hopefully, everybody today will be able to hear what's going on in the proceedings, but in the event of an IT failure, we will look to adjourn the meeting and recommence when connections are back on. Hopefully we'll be okay this morning. Just to let everybody know that the recording will be made available on the council's YouTube channel within the next few days. Can I ask members please to have their videos on but to remain muted, and if you wish to speak at the meeting to use the chat facility, which now we're using at Teams, is located at the top right hand side of the screen. There's a small bubble symbol there. If you click on that, that will open up to get the attention of the Leader of Council. Obviously, the format of the meeting will be in line with the agenda, and I will now hand back to the Leader for the main event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd just like to go round the table as usual, just to check that everybody can see and hear, and if you could introduce yourselves at the same time before we start proceedings. Should we start with me? I can see and hear myself and everybody else. Councillor Slocum.
Good morning, Leader. Good morning, everyone. Councillor Slocum, Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder for Inward Investment and Growth, and I can see and hear everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Good morning, Leader, everybody. Councillor Mike Caswell, Portfolio Holder for Infrastructure and Transport. I can clearly hear and see everybody.
Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, good morning all. Councillor Lance Duddridge, Portfolio Holder for Customer Access and Digital Delivery, and I can see and hear everything.
Councillor Mark Healy.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Mark Healy, Portfolio Member for Commercial Asset Management. I can clearly see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Keane.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Janet Keane, Portfolio Holder for Communities and Wellbeing. I confirm that I can see and hear everyone present.
Thank you. And we are without Councillor Andrew Gilling this morning, who is suffering or has suffered a power cut, or as they say in America, a power outage. I'd just like to go round SLT and if they could perhaps introduce themselves or any officers that are with them today, and start with Doug.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everybody. Doug Bamsey, Strategic Director.
Mr. Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Bob Brown, Strategic Director. I can confirm that I can hear and see everyone.
Thank you. Who else have we got here? Melanie Wellman.
Hello, good morning. Melanie Wellman, Assistant Director for Legal and Governance, and I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
Good morning, Leader. Yes, I'm Steve Taylor in Democratic Services supporting the meeting today, and I can see and hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Turner.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alison Turner. I'm Assistant Director for Finance and Property. I can confirm I can see and hear everything. Yeah, I've got a new chair. I'm taller now.
Right. We're also joined by Dave Coles.
Hello, sorry, Dave Coles, Sedgemoor District Council, Coastal Environmental Protection Manager, and I can confirm I can see and hear everything.
Lovely. Victoria Whittlesea.
Hi, I'm Victoria Whittlesea, Community Development Project Officer in the Community Safety Team, and I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Chris Trevelyan.
Good morning, Christian Trevelyan, Partnership Manager for the Somerset Independence Plus. I can confirm I can hear and see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And we got Simon Carpenter.
Hello, good morning. Simon Carpenter, one of the Environmental Health Officers for the Environmental Protection Team. And yes, I can confirm I can see and hear everybody. Thank you.
Right. And we're also joined by Councillor Smedley and Councillor Revens. Have I missed anybody out? I don't think so. Right, good. Well then, moving on then, start the meeting. We all have sight of the agenda. Any apologies?
No apologies, except for Councillor Gilling. I will record him as apologies if he doesn't join the meeting later on.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest, DPI or prejudicial, please? Nope. Good. Moving on then, 3 urgent business. I have 1 item of urgent business, which is to do with the test and trace discretionary payments policy, and we'll be taking that towards the end of the agenda, I understand. Yeah. And just to let you also know that the 2 exempt items that were on the agenda today have been deferred and will be considered at the meeting of the 18th of November, if everyone's happy with that. Right, moving on, agenda item 4, public speaking time. We have no members of the public registered to speak, but as usual, I will allow members of council to make comment and ask questions should they wish to do so. Therefore, we go into the agenda proper, agenda item 5, public space protection order, antisocial behaviour, and we've got Victoria here who will run through that after Councillor Keane has done the introduction. Councillor Keane.
Thank you very much, everyone. The paper is merely a renewal of existing and some slight variances, because the antisocial behaviour, it is a matter of concern to everyone, whether it's one person or a group of people. And over the last 6 months, there have been some slight changes in how this is taking place, because there are more gatherings that are entirely unwise and illegal. So over to Victoria to explain the detail of some of these variations.
Victoria.
Thank you. So you should have all had the report sent over to you. So I'll just give you the summary. These came in to Sedgemoor District Council in 2017, the public space protection orders taking over from the DPPOs at the time. They were made in relation to alcohol, legal high consumption, amplified music, night fishing, camping and direction to move on at various locations across Sedgemoor. They have to be renewed every 3 years, and we have to provide evidence to support the renewal. There were 2 rounds of consultation undertaken with the public and other stakeholders, and any objections received, which there was only 1 objection in the second round. So we are looking to approve renewing the night fishing PSPOs and renewing variations to the existing PSPOs as per the report that you've been given. So that's the summary.
Right.
May I add a small rider to what Victoria has said? When there are gatherings, the police are so stretched at the moment. They will respond, but they do have to triage the level of importance and the level of nuisance that is being caused. We are in extraordinary times where this is concerned.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Members, any comments or questions? Seems fairly straightforward for a renewal and updating. Any comments or questions?
I would like to move the recommendation, Leader.
Happy to second. In that case, then we'll take the vote. Councillor Slocum.
Yes, fully support this. Thank you.
I've
seen and heard it. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. I've listened to the debates and absolutely makes common sense to carry on. So I fully support.
Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, I've seen and heard the presentation and I fully support.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yes, clearly I'm as one with everybody else on the executive, seen and heard of it and more than happy to sanction it as well. Thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Keane, you're for?
I agree, yes.
As am I. So over to you, Andrew.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Leader. Members, that decision is a unanimous decision.
Thank you. And let's wish the police all the best of luck in enforcing what is required. I know they're stretched, but so is everybody else. But thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Victoria, for your attendance and presentation. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Right. Moving on, then we come to public space protection order, dog control. We've got Simon Carpenter and Dave Coles here. Over to you, Janet.
Thank you, Leader. As you can see, many of these controls are already in existence, but these, of course, are aimed at the owners, not the dogs. And it is the owners who need educating more than the dogs. It's a well set out and well researched paper, and it does give important health criteria as to why we're doing this. So I don't know if it's Simon or Dave who will be doing presenting. Simon.
I'll do the presenting. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Over to you.
And yes, it is very much a similar process to what Victoria has just explained. It was last updated in 2017, and we now seek to renew all of the existing orders, and we've also got a few new orders that have been recommended in Appendix 3. And these are mainly for dog exclusion areas in children's fenced off play areas, so that kind of makes sense, and one in a playing field. So I hope you all agree, and we can put these forward for enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should say it's not all owners that need educating. But
some of us are responsible, of course.
Yeah. Okay, good. Members, any comments or questions? Councillor Healy.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Through you, if I may. Question for Simon. You say, obviously in public areas, i.e., play areas for children, etc. It just springs to mind about the dog warden situation. Of course, I know we have a dog warden person that represents us, but it's okay to say this is where we're going to do it, but how are you going to empower this when clearly, I mean, I shall go locally if you don't mind, through you, Leader. We have these problems where I live in Puriton, and I hear it from Wellington and everywhere else that I represent. So if I may, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I suppose in reality I'm doing, if you don't mind. How are we going to enforce, not me trying to do a big brother or whatever trying to thing is, but clearly parish councils play a major part in this locally. As you know, parish councils do get this every time they have a meeting. So without being sort of, if you like, so a big brother attitude, would you say it's right to encourage parish councils to say, if they see somebody, not to mention names, but say, can they help? That's what I'm saying. Because clearly one dog warden cannot get round, the whole of Sedgemoor just like that. I'm just trying to help the situation somewhat. Otherwise, we will be in a position, if I may, to say, yes, it's a brilliant idea. Yes, total enforcement. But if you can't carry it out, it becomes slightly, what's the word I'm looking for? Lightweight touch. I'm just trying to, is there any involvement the parish councils can do to help?
I think once we know of certain hotspot areas, then we can speak to Tina, and she's quite good at going ad hoc and just go into these areas that we get enforcement, we get intel on, and then she's able to do these visits and possibly find these people, catch them in the act. So I'd say definitely that's a good idea. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for your answer.
Councillor Keane.
Thank you. I'm right in thinking that there is a system of the fixed penalty notices, and it would be ourselves, the council, who would issue those. I believe from memory that at least 2 were issued in the last 18 months.
I don't have the actual numbers.
No, I've got to say we're reasonably successful in issuing penalty notices, and we have in fact taken people to court in the past over this. So we are fairly vigilant in it. I would also say that we only have 1 dog warden at the moment, but I'm sure we will increase their number sooner rather than later. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I thought you'd forgotten me. Yeah, what Tina, you're absolutely right. I think this is a difficult one because it's Tina has to be there to see evidence. It's nice to have these orders in place, but actually getting somebody is amazing. I've always suggested that we should be given tasers, but apparently legal don't agree with that, which is a bit unfortunate because I would have liked that. But what Tina's done, come round in the area and she's done some red like a template she puts on the floor and she sprays that. We have found that absolutely wonderful. That's really worked in the hot spots. And unfortunately, because of COVID, Tina's not been able to come out in our area. But I would say to anyone to get these stenciling, sorry, it's a stencil where it says do not foul the pavement. Absolutely works wonders. And I would encourage anyone to have a go at that. She's really, really good. We've gone round with her and done the stenciling, and it has proved very, very successful. But I still think, I know Melanie won't probably like this, but I still think a taser would be, honestly would work. But, you know, I'll just put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coles.
Hello, yes, I just wanted to just go back to the enforcement issues, and what we tend to do now, as Simon said, is we tend to spot enforcement because we haven't got the resources to patrol every area every week, if you see what I mean. So what we'll do is, as Councillor Healy said, if people provide us with information, say, well, actually at this playing field there's a problem, or at this location, then we will try and put resources in there to try and do some hotspot enforcement and issue some fixed penalty notices. So we try and do more of a hotspot enforcement at the moment, and that can be effective because if we issue some fixed penalty notice in an area, word gets round, and what we tend to find as well is that certain areas will be there'll be dog fouling, but it's sometimes literally just one owner that's causing the problem, and if we can catch them, it will stem the problem for a while. I mean, it's something we'll never be able to fully solve, but the fixed penalty notices are a very good deterrent, and people do genuinely don't like getting them if they get them. And as Councillor McGuinty said, we have taken people to court in the past for non-payment of fines, but also for people that have persistently breached the rules. So we are happy to enforce. As Simon said, we've only got one dog warrant at the moment. Once we increase that capacity, then we can undertake more rigorous enforcement of these orders.
Thank you. Councillor Keane, did you want to come back?
Yes, please. Just a word of caution. If vigilant members of the public see this happening and owners don't pick up and clean up after them, it's better to inform Simon and Dave, but I would suggest do not take photographs with your phones because people will object to their privacy being invaded, and that could lead to a very difficult situation, and we can't really afford for ourselves to be classed as the bad guys. So no photographs.
Yeah, for your own protection, I would not advise.
Yes, definitely.
That. Yeah, thank you. Right. Any other members of council wish to say anything? I mean, you'll notice on the report attached are the comments from Puriton Parish Council for inclusion in the dog protection order areas, and hopefully that will help Councillor Healy in his own area. Members, any other comments or questions? No, right. In that case, then, Councillor Revens.
Sorry, Leader. I was multitasking, doing some laundry as well. I couldn't quite get in time. I do wonder if I appreciate Councillor Slocum's dogmatic approach to this, but I think that's tasers are probably unhelpful. I do wonder if the stencils and the spray paint could be supplied to parish councils so that they could respond to this issue more quickly, if that were possible, please.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's something we could look at, and Dave and Simon will take that back on board and see what we can do. Yeah, Councillor Slocum, and then we must move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say the stenciling is done by our dog warden because it's quick and efficient, and I think she's only got so many stencils and she does it. But I do think if people could identify hotspots, it really would work. I don't think she'd give the stuff out to people, but I think she would gladly do the areas where people could identify. They really could, you know what I mean? And my jest about a taser is the fact that not for the dear dogs. It's not, as Councillor Keane said, it's not the dog's fault, but the stenciling really does work. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Keane, do you wish to propose?
I would like to move the recommendation, Leader.
I'll second that, and now we'll go round the table. Councillor Slocum.
Yes, I've seen and heard the debate and fully go with the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. I've seen and heard the debate and happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor Lance Doddridge.
Yeah, I've seen and heard this very full debate, and I'm very happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yes, thank you. I've seen and heard the debate and fully support it. Thank you.
Councillor Keane, you're for, yes?
I support the date, yes.
As am I. Thank you very much, having seen and heard the comments and the debate. Mr. Melhuish.
And again, thank you, Leader and members. That decision, as per the recommendation in agenda item 6, is unanimously carried.
Thank you. Right, moving on then to agenda item 7, Treasury management activity for the year. We're joined by Mrs. Monteith, I see, welcome. And as you all see, this is a recommendation to Council after a year of interesting times, and not a bad performance really, but I'll shut up for now, but I'll allow Mrs. Monteith to give a brief overview.
Hi, morning everyone.
Morning.
So yeah, this is our annual report to the executive. It's to note our activity for the year ending 31st of March 2020, and it's brought to you in line with our obligations to the SIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management. So hopefully you've all read and you understand the report, but what I'm going to do is just take you through each table in turn, because that's probably the clearest way for me to do that for you. So in paragraph 3, we have the first table for the Treasury position at the 31st of March, showing our borrowing and our CFR. Our CFR is our capital financing requirement. So that brings together all of our previous projects that we funded by capital borrowing, and it kind of totals them up. So what we've got in the first table is a summary of our long-term loans. So you can see for the top of the table, our HRA debt is more or less quite steady. We took on an awful lot of debt several years ago to buy ourselves out of the housing subsidy system. We are repaying some of those loans and then pretty much borrowing again immediately. So our HRA debt does stay quite stable from one year to the next. Our general fund debt, you can see, has increased quite considerably. The 800,000 at the end of March last year, I'm pretty sure is a typo. That should be 8 million. But you can see we've increased our debt by £39 million last year. And that's because we took the decision to externalise internal borrowing while interest rates are relatively low, or pretty much at an all-time low. So we have been externalising lots of debts during the year. The second table compares that borrowing to our CFR, our capital financing requirement. And it is a legal obligation that our external borrowing must not exceed our CFR. So this table shows that our HRA CFR at the end of March 2020 was 56 million, with our actual borrowing of just under 53 million. So we're fine on that one. And our general fund CFR is almost 60 million with actual borrowing of 47 million. So that does mean we have internal borrowing on our general fund of 13 million. So we could go out and do some external borrowing while interest rates are low. Our treasury management strategy tells us that we should be looking out when interest rates are low and borrowing at the optimum times. So the Section 151 officer, Alison Turner, and myself do meet quite regularly to decide when we should be looking into more external borrowing. You can see that our CFR did increase last year by almost £30 million, and that's because of our capital programme being funded quite substantially by borrowing. So the next table shows our investments at the end of the year. You can see that from the 31st of March 19 to the 31st of March 20, our overall investments are quite stable. We've always got quite a high level of investments, but what we have done is to move some of our short-term borrowing out into longer-term pooled funds. So you can see the movement on that table is very much from the top of the table, which is short-term kind of cash flow monies, down into the bottom of the table into pooled funds. With interest rates being as they are at the moment, pooled funds are bringing in a much better interest rate, and we'll have a quick look at that table in a moment, a bit further on. So the next table on paragraph 4 is about investment activity during the year. So the first table shows us our internally managed funds. At the top, the the budget, and then the actual received. So we actually outperformed our budget on that one, on both of our internally managed funds, although the budget was extremely low because we are getting very low interest rates on those, and we're trying to not keep so much internally managed on a short-term basis. So you can see by far the biggest budget is for our externally managed funds, where we have the bulk of our funds now, and they are bringing in much better interest rates. So the original budget for 1920 was relatively low, and it was increased at revised budget stage. It was doubled. It was quite an optimistic budget, I think, which Alison set me. But we almost reached it. And I think probably if there wasn't for the downturn right at the end of March, we would have met that budget and indeed exceeded it. So I am relatively pleased with the actual outturn for 1920 on that. The next table just takes a very quick look at our internally managed funds, the interest received and the average rate received against our benchmark. So you can see the average rate received was almost 1% and 1% on those two, which did outperform the benchmarks that we set ourselves. Again, the absolute figures of interest are actually quite low on that. But even so, that does show that where we are placing our variable and short-term money, we are getting the best rate that we can. So now to move on to pooled funds. I have a summary there on that table of the money of the different pooled funds where we hold our money now. So we've got several pooled funds. Some are property funds, some are diversified funds. The actual interest received and the dividends paid out on those and converted into an average rate for the year. So you can see we're getting, very much improved rates on our pooled funds. So just finally then a look at number 6, the impact on the budget. So you can see our actual loan interest budget was 1.8 million last year, and the actual paid out was 1.8 million. Our budget for 2020-21 looking forward is a lot higher, but that's because we are still continuing to externalize our CFR and lock into borrowing at low interest rates. You need to remember that some of this borrowing will be very short term, but sometimes it will be for 30 years. So if I can lock into borrowing that's under 2% for the next 30 years, then that's a really good interest rate to lock into. So although it does increase your budget for interest paid over the longer term, and especially when you're looking at a business plan of 30 years for the HRA, it's a good idea to do. Investment interest received then, our budget was 1.4 and we received 1.1. So as I said, not as much as we wanted, but I still think a good outturn for last year, considering the downturn at the end of March. Our budget for 2021 we have reduced significantly because we simply don't know what we're going to achieve. However, all of the noises coming out from the funds that we invest with are all very positive, and they are some of the dividends that have come out this year have been better than we originally expected them to be. So I am hoping that at revised budget time we will be able to increase that 2021 budget. You will, of course, be receiving a monitoring on this year's budget performance in the next month or so. So you'll be able to see how this year's budget is performing, actuals are performing against the budget. That's all I'm going to say on the report, I think, but I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Overall, I mean, it's been a reasonably healthy year for us. We've performed better than most, and it's worth noting that in Section 8, the 151 officer comments, we have built up reserves over recent years so that we can have a managed use of balances through our budget process in order to maintain and improve services rather than to make cuts to services. So that policy is working well and is looking very stable. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to congratulate the team and excellent pooled funds, average interest rates, amazing. I think that looks really very, very good. And in these difficult times, I think we should be very, very pleased. So thank you very much.
Right. Anyone else? Any comments or questions? And this is, as has been said, an item for note, and that will go to full council. Any other comments or questions? Okay, in that case, I'm happy to move that the report is noted and give my thanks to the Treasury management team as well. Well done, Alison. Thank you. Is that seconded?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you. Right, we'll just go around the table then. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. Seen and heard the debate and for the noting of the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. I've seen and heard that debate, and very interesting too. I would wholeheartedly support.
Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, I've seen and heard the report, and I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Seen and heard the report, and happy to agree with everything that other people have said. Support it.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Leader. I have seen and heard the debate and the written reports, and I approve and agree the recommendation.
Thank you, as do I. Thank you. Mr. Mel Hewish.
Yes, thank you, Leader and members. And again, that is clearly a unanimous decision, and that will go forward to full council for their information as well.
Thank you. Good, and thank you very much, Mrs. Monteith. Thank you.
Thank
Moving
you.
on then to agenda item 8, Somerset West Private Sector Housing Disabled Grants Facility. And we're joined by, I should think, Chris Trevelyan. And I will go to Councillor Slocum to do the introduction, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'm introducing this on behalf of Councillor Gilling, who is obviously, this is the amendment to the private sector policy review. The report seeks members' approval for the amendments of the Somerset West private sector renewal policy to include the grant ceiling limit from obviously 4,000 to 15,000, which is, as we all know, is a very, very important grant, and this will help them tremendously. Councillor Gilling wants to actually thank the team for the tremendous work they've done on this, and he really does appreciate everything you've done, Chris, and your team. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Over to Mr. Trevelyan.
Well, I don't know how I can proceed that really, but thank you very much, Councillor Slocum. So yes, as we said, we've increased the Decent Homes grant from 4,000 to 15,000. So we can hopefully intend to assist more clients who are struggling financially to manage their repairs. Previously, the grant was set at 4,000 with a means tested benefit. However, what we're finding is those who can't afford the Lendology loan, which were formerly Wessex, they've fallen through the cracks because they then haven't got a passported benefit to be able to get them into the Decent Homes grant, or the work was in excess of 4,000. So we felt by changing these little loopholes, it will increase the potential for those clients to get more help. Still, obviously, clients who can afford it, we're safeguarded against those because there is a means test. So using similar means test policy as the disabled facilities grants, which will ensure that way that the real able to pays aren't exploiting the system. So in terms of other changes we've made, we have looked at making changes to the loan product. So we've increased the loan product now from 15 to 25,000. The main reason for this is because we're getting larger schemes which are coming in, which people have the ability to pay back, but also they've got major repairs that need fixing. So they're reaching the ceiling limit of 15, but then they feel frustrated because they can't borrow more. So we've increased that in line with our discussions with other consortium members across the Southwest. Felt 25,000 was a good benchmark. We also, for those clients who still reach the 25,000 limit but need still more help but can't afford to raise any further loan, or we've got clients who can afford a smaller loan but the works are still major, then we're offering a £10,000 supplement to their loan, which is non-means tested. The reason for that is because we want to encourage everybody to take responsibility and ownership for their property, hence why we want to push them down the loan route first. However, if they are in a position where they can afford some loan, we still want to encourage that. We don't want them to go to the direct route of the Decent Homes grant, where they'll be means tested, which was the 15 grand grant we talked about just now. So that's why we feel that if we offered the £10,000 grant, then on top of their loan, then that will support them. So to give you an example, a very simple example, if we've got works that are £15,000 and the client can afford a £5,000 loan, then it makes sense to top them up to 10,000. That way, at least then they can get the support that they need to get the works done. And we felt that was quite a good balance, because generally, if they can't afford a very high loan, we don't want to be giving any more than 10,000, because that's a risk to the authority. So we felt 10,000 was a compromise, because it allows us to get rid of all the category 1 hazards in the property, which we have a duty to do. And it's balancing that with the fact that if we don't help them, then they could end up homeless, because we could serve a prohibition order on them because their property is dangerous, which then means we've got a knock-on effect for the homelessness team, and probably more cost in terms of community loss and also monetary loss for that individual. All the £10,000 grant would be recycled, because if they sell the property in the period of the loan, then they would have to repay both the loan and also the grant back. So we will get our money back in one way or another over that period. And most loans tend to be sort of between 10 and 20 years. So there's a guarantee invariably that we will get our money returned. Now, as you're probably all aware, we've signed up to the Somerset Climate Emergency. And as part of that, we want to try and help as many people as possible with getting renewables and energy efficiency measures. So we've been rather busy beavering away with various projects, and we've received 1.4 million from the Warm Homes Fund from a successful bid that we had earlier this year to help provide first-time gas, central heating and energy measures into people's homes. That's across Somerset. Plus, also, we've in the recent weeks been awarded £500,000 from BEIS, the business enterprise part of the government, for energy measures to help with social housing and to a small degree some owner occupiers. The target rate there is around 175 people. So what we felt was, with our loans, the BEIS work and also the WHF work, we felt that if there's any gaps following that, we'd like to also still be able to help people and encourage and kickstart the market. So what we're offering is £4,500 towards any work that needs to take place on energy measures. So, for example, one scheme that I didn't mention then was EcoFlex. We've spearheaded by Somerset Independence Plus. We've got a signed EcoFlex across all authorities in Somerset. What EcoFlex is basically, when suppliers were privatised for the energy suppliers, they were criticised for not putting their profits back into society. So part of that was they had to put some of that profit into providing free energy measures into people's homes who were vulnerable. But they can only do that if there's a signed EcoFlex declaring that the authorities are But what we're finding is sometimes it only goes over by 1,000 or 2,000. It just seems very bureaucratic to get to a point where we need to just get on with the works and get the builder booked in, particularly at a busy time at the moment when lots of people are getting their construction work done. So what we're offering here is that by putting this £10,000 discretionary on top without the need to get portfolio sign off, and we've checked this through with Swap as well for auditing purposes, then it just means that we can continue to get the grants through swiftly. However, we will be still offering a discretionary top up of 20,000. And when I talked about our previous policy saying we offered a discretionary grant before, but we had to go through portfolio holder sign off, etc., there was no limit on that. But now, because we're offering that 10,000 and we've increased the limit to 40, if we offer any further discretion, I think we need to put a limit on to safeguard ourselves. So that's why I'm suggesting that that ceiling is placed at 20, because potentially we could be talking here that the client could get 60,000. Previously, before that, the client could get 120,000 if needed, where we've had clients who've got double children's cases where they're sharing the same home. So I think we've got to sort of draw a line somewhere, really. And finally, we're also introducing a panel to oversee and make decisions on complex cases which don't fit policy. Without going into a great deal of detail, because I respect this is a public meeting, but we had a client who's been going through the child system and the courts for care. And as a result of that, the boiling down of it is behavioural issues which don't really fit in our DFG policy. However, the cost of care for this individual if they don't stay with the care package they've got, which is a close family that's been identified, then we are talking somewhere in the region of £132,000 every 6 months for their care, which actually, if we provide a grant to be able to assist them to have a property that's suitably adjusted for that family, say at 30,000, that's a lot cheaper, and it keeps the family together in the community. So hopefully that's kind of giving you an idea of the policy changes that we've been talking about. And in the in item 3.4 of the agenda, it talks about what I've just been discussing around the reasons for the changes in the policy. There are other things that we're very keen on doing, because probably, as I said, we've talked about various energy proposals that we've done in bids, and part of the reason you're probably asking, well, why are we doing this on behalf of Somerset for the EcoFlex? And there's a good reason for that, because SIP is a business model which also has to make money as well, both a bit like the building control partnership. And what it does for us is, besides doing the commissioned work, which is the statutory DFGs and so forth that we're commissioned to do by MENDIP and other authorities, we've also got private work, and the ability to be able to do or sign EcoFlexes for authorities like South Somerset means we can follow that up with assisting those clients by further funding through South Somerset for private work around decent homes grants and so on and so forth. Or they might not want to approach that council for anything because they can fund things themselves, and so they would rather come to us. So what we're trying to do is create as many business leads as we can to try and encourage people to come to us as the go-to place for private work as well. And already, we've got a private works book at the moment of nearly £200,000, of which 44,000 of that will be fees privately for us for this financial year, which isn't bad considering COVID. And also, some of those projects are really big, hefty projects which involve a complete rebuild of a property for a client who's also got disabled needs. And so it sort of provides a complete round for our service, really, in terms of trying to help as many people as possible. So that's the end of my presentation, really. Any questions?
Right, I'd just like to say thank you very much for what has been a comprehensive report set out in a logical form and well thought through. Members will note that we've got 5 on the report, 3 options: to do nothing, partially accept the changes, or option 3, to agree with the proposed changes. To my mind, there is really only one option, and that's the third option, is to agree to proceed with what I think are exceptionally well thought out changes that will hit the market and the people that really need it. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'll agree with you. It was very comprehensively stated. We're obviously sharing the same room, you and I, Christian, but I am 2 meters away from you. Okay. Yeah, the question is, I must declare an interest through you, Leader, and clearly through the solicitor, that an interest that I'm a private sector landlord, and it does. The question clearly comes from that way, but not for me personally. When you said that private sector landlords could apply, I noticed, and maybe I've got this wrong, so please correct me if I have, that private sector landlords could actually apply for a loan or whatever, for energy, maybe, put in, maybe they need a heating system, etc. But did I hear it right or wrong? And please correct me quickly, that a private sector landlord could approach yourselves and say, I need a loan for this or whatever to do a property up. Is that correct, or have I misunderstood what you said? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No, you haven't. So anyway, if there's a private sector landlord, somebody wants a loan from us to improve their energy measures or to improve the decency of their property, no, we're more than happy to entertain that request. Regarding the landlord's grant for measures up to 15,000, the landlords would have to accept nominations for those bits, but not for the loan.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any member of council? Any member of the executive? Any comments or questions? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Councillor Slocum then.
Thank you very much, Leader. As you noticed, I didn't give the other options. I just gave the option to approve the amendments to the Somerset West private sector renewal policy. I would just like to say that you have to have your business head on, Chris, but you also have to have compassion, and you certainly have that in 100-fold. So I congratulate you the work you do, really do. It's not my portfolio, but I enhance everything you do, and thank you very, very much. And I hope this goes towards helping you to facilitate your grant scheme and help many people live in a decent, healthy way. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Slocum. I'll pass that on to the team. Thank you.
Right then, are you happy that I move the recommendation to accept the changes and that Councillor Slocum will second then? Yes?
I will second. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, okay. Then we'll move to the vote. Certainly, clearly, I'm in favour and heard the debate. Councillor Slocum.
Certainly in favour, heard the debate. Thank you.
Councillor Caswell.
Yes, heard the debate. Happy with the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, heard the debate and very much in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yes, heard the debate and clearly I'm in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keane.
Thank you. Yes, I have heard the debate, and I assume it is the option 3 that you are recommending, and I fully support that.
Thank you. Right. Mr. Bell-Hewish.
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. Thank you, members. And that decision to approve the amendments to the Somerset West private sector renewal policy was unanimously carried. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Therefore, moving on then, and to thank you, Chris, for your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye. The agenda item 9, which is the report from Aspen Housing, Sedgemoor Group Limited, the development business plans for 2021. Clearly, this was our first investment into the housing market, and this is to approve the business development plan for the future. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Mrs. Turner.
Thank you, Lisa. I won't present this report because it's a business plan for the company, and as I'm not a director on the business, it's probably more appropriate for one of the directors to present it.
Yeah.
Leader, I'll take that item if I can.
Yep, certainly. Thank you.
Just to briefly say that this is slightly delayed because it was intended to come earlier in the year, but obviously COVID overtook those issues. By way of context, it's important to say that the company is a vehicle for generating income for the council and providing funds in to support the general fund. And I think if you look at the business case and the finances at the back of the annual plan, you will see that it's succeeding in doing that. We do that in two ways. One is that the interest payable on the loan that the company took out is being paid back from the rental income that we get from the properties, and that is above the base rate and provides an income there. But also we utilise a number of staff in the authority to support the running of this business, and the money from that also goes in to defray the costs of council employees. So there is a significant income. The basis upon which we undertook this was that we were looking for growth in rental income all the way through the business case period, and we were intending to have a 2.5% increase annually on rentals. We found after taking on the properties that we reached the peak of the market in terms of new rentals for refurbished properties, but that we found that actually, because of the way that the properties had been managed previously, that there was a significant gap between the rentals being paid by different tenants. So in other words, a lot of tenants were paying much below market rent, and we've got a rent harmonisation programme that's going on, and which we recommend to continue, which actually increases our income annually, so that we do maintain our profit and our ability to pay off the loans. We've also have a programme of refurbishment of properties to make sure that we can increase the rent to the top of the market level. And we also have had a policy of repurchasing 2-bedroom properties, which are those which are most popular with tenants when we seek to market the property. So those two things taken together means that we've managed to maintain and enhance the profitability of the company and the return to the council. And the plan says that we will continue to do that and look to refurbish properties and increase the income. It's, I think, important to say that in the plan we seek to be a good landlord, and we have continued to invest in the rental properties to make sure that they have maintained at a good standard. And interestingly, since we've had the Grenfell issue, whilst we've had annual fire risk assessments, and over a number of years we've maintained those and had little or minimal activity needed to invest in to make up to fire standards, we have had more recently a more rigorous review done by the same people, but they seem to have spotted some other issues that we need to address, and we've addressed those immediately to make sure that our tenants are safe. So fire doors, fire alarms, and other security measures, including electrical certificates and other issues, have been dealt with straight away, and we are supported by the council's facilities team in Alison's department, and they have successfully managed that property for us. The last thing to say is that we do have some leaseholders that we need to manage and ensure that we have a forward plan of capital investment to make sure the property is maintained. And we do that in consultation with our leaseholders, and you will see that we've got a plan to address some of the roofing, guttering and other issues as a priority, but also deal with some of the other bigger items, which is the door entry system and others, to make sure that the property is maintained to a decent standard, that we can attract tenants and we can maintain our income and profit, so that we return monies to the council and obviously deliver on the objectives of the company, which is to defray the costs to the council taxpayers of the district. So that's it in essence. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Seems a good plan, a good successful history, and well done. Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I love the idea of the rent harmonisation programme. There's nothing better than a bit of harmony with residents, and I think this is really good to prove that we are good landlords, and the fact that you're dealing with all the current and issues that need to be dealt with. So I really feel very, very confident. This property sits in my ward, and I have to say it's really good news. This is a very, very good news story. So I would be very, very confident and happy to move the 2 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of council or members of the executive, any other comments or questions? No. Okay then. Recommendations have been moved, seconded. I'll now go round the table. I've seen, heard and support the recommendations. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I've seen, heard and support very much so the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. I have seen, heard and very enthusiastic and support the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, I've also seen and heard and support the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yes, also seen and heard and happy to go forward with the recommendations with everybody else.
Thank you. Councillor Keane.
Thank you. I have seen and heard and I support the recommendation.
Right. Therefore, Mr. Melchiorish.
Thank you very much, Leader and members. And yes, the 2 recommendations set out in agenda item report, item 9 are unanimously carried. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And thank you very much, Bob, for a very succinct and informative presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, members.
Yeah, moving on then to the final item on the agenda, which is the urgent item we brought forward, which is the test and trace discretionary payment policy. I should have put my other teeth in this morning, obviously. So without further ado, I think the only thing that I would point out to this is that this is a policy and criteria that we've developed both under government guidance and with our neighbours to the south, Taunton and West Somerset. So without further ado, I think we've got Mr. Warren here, who will just run through the salient high level points of this policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So yes, as you've said, we have been asked to introduce a discretionary payment scheme for the test and trace isolation. This has been introduced by government across the country. And there are 2 schemes that are run in parallel alongside each other. One is a standard scheme, which we have no control over. And there is a secondary scheme, a discretionary scheme that we do have input into specific to our local area. The scheme itself is intended to make sure that people can self-isolate without being financially disadvantaged. The purpose of the scheme is for those who are eligible for a payment will receive a £500 payment. There is no sliding scale on that. It is either £500 or nothing, and that is both in the standard scheme and the discretionary scheme. We have to be clear that whilst the payment is being administered by the Benefits Department, it is not a benefits payment. So we do need to be clear and distinct on that when talking to each other and the general public. The government acknowledge or have acknowledged as part of these schemes that they cannot help everyone, and so the scheme is designed to help those most in need. The standard scheme, as I've said, is we have no control over, and that is intended to help specific people. The discretionary scheme that we, as you have stated, we have worked alongside Somerset, West and Taunton to develop the criteria that we want to introduce to help our residents. Further on to that, I can confirm that Somerset, West and Taunton have now adopted the policy in their area. The funding received from government for the discretionary scheme allows us to pay a maximum of 62 claims. There is no top up to the funding for this scheme, so once we've spent the money allocated, we cannot make any further payments. And so it's been important when creating the criteria for this scheme that we have been very clear as to who we are trying to assist. The government themselves in their guidance, and we would reiterate this, is that it is very difficult to try and help everyone. In fact, it's really difficult to help everyone, and so we are trying to help those most in need. As I've said, we do only have a finite amount of money for the discretionary scheme, and in having so, the policy itself, does give allowance to the Section 151 officer to make technical amendments to the scheme, so that if we are either underpaying the amount of applicants we are expecting to pay, or indeed we are paying more than we were expecting to pay, we can make amendments at any time where it is deemed appropriate, so that we don't run out of money before the end of the scheme, which is due to be on the 31st of January 2021. As such, with those notes, and as I've said in the report, I would recommend that this policy is subsequently adopted by Sedgemoor District Council. Obviously, I'm happy to take any questions following that.
Right, members, Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Leader. In the papers, there was a table where government gives estimated numbers of people who are likely to claim, but as this is an area where there is a very strong emphasis on tourism and hospitality, I would suggest that that probably is going to be very much on the low side. So in fact, we may have to budget or to pay out slightly more than perhaps we would if we took those figures. But in principle, I entirely support this scheme because so many of the self-employed and the micro businesses, it's just one person and family support, they have suffered so badly over the last 6 months. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Slocum.
Oh, thank you, Leader. I was just going to say, I think Sedgemoor has done a tremendous job in paying out business rates and helping businesses throughout this last 6 months. We really have. But I think this is something added. I would like to thank Mr. Warren for the way that he's laid out all the appendices with the track and tracing, all the definitions, and the helpful and how helpful that is for us to understand. And I thank you for that. There's obviously been a lot of work done in this. And I was just going to say to you that when we've paid 31, when you've got to the key ceiling, there is no other funding. Is that correct? Or can you find any more if there was more than 62 payments?
Unfortunately, not this time. The government have been very clear that the discretionary payments that we've been allocated is a finite amount. There will be no top up. The standard scheme, which obviously we're not talking about today, but the standard scheme, that will be topped up as and when we need it.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to clarify that point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, let's all keep our fingers crossed and hope.
Yeah.
Hope that it's not all needed. Councillor Smedley.
Yeah, can I just ask about the £3,000 savings disqualifier that I know is in there? I couldn't find that in the government papers. Is that something you added discretionarily locally? And is that a sensible figure to limit people to?
The government within their schemes, both the discretionary and the standard scheme, haven't stated a capital level. That is something that, alongside discussions with members of the IRRV and Somerset Western Taunton, that we have decided on ourselves. Obviously, we are experienced in dealing with benefit applications, which again, this is not, but using guidelines associated with in terms of capital levels, the minimum capital level for benefits, to give you some idea, is £6,000. So we have halved that and gone lower. The reason the £3,000 figure was chosen is because the £500 payment itself is deemed to last somebody for a 2-week period, 14-day period. And with regards to the savings being at £3,000, bearing in mind that the funding that we do have is finite, we deemed that it would not be unacceptable for somebody to use their savings, however difficult it may be to use those savings. It wouldn't be inappropriate to ask them to use those savings to stop them from facing financial hardship. In January, and
this is the discretionary fund as in order to try and prevent financial hardship, and there will
income.